Hi everyone, my name is Nitya Daniel, and I'm super excited to be joining all of you at the Powerful Devs conference. And I'm here with
Daniel Laskowitz, and I'm also really excited to be here. Today, we are going to talk about enabling millions of low-code developers by building custom connectors. But before we start and talk about that, first we need to introduce ourselves. So Nitya, please take it away.
Wonderful. Hi everyone, I'm joining you from wintry New York. I'm a cloud advocate on the JavaScript advocacy team at Microsoft. And I'm here because I work with JavaScript, mobile, and web development. And I really wanted to know how folks like me could help support the low code ecosystem.
Yeah, you sure can help us there. And my name is Daniel Laskowitz, and I'm a senior cloud advocate on the Power Platform. So I work with the Power Platform for a long time already. I have been working with Microsoft for half a year, but before that, I've been working for almost 7 years with the Power Platform. So I have lots of experience there. And I kind of represent the low code side of things, and Nitya is here to talk about the pro code side of things. So we try to help each other as much as possible. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about the agenda.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So the agenda for today, we already had our introduction. We are going to talk about our scenario that we want to show you. And because of that scenario, we should talk about connectors because that's a big part of our scenario. And because we are going to talk about that, we'll talk about the types of connectors. We're going to do a demo of custom connectors, and we are going to explain the independent publisher connectors, which is one of the types of connectors. And after that, when we have built our connector, we also want to create something with that connector. And that's why we want to build a front end. And we are going to use the creator kit for that. And then we are going to demo the Power App that we built with that as well. And to wrap it all up, we are also going to talk about some resources so that you can look at the resources that we give you, and you can even do it yourself later on. So without further ado, let's move on to the scenario.
So yeah, when you came to me and said, hey, there are things you could do as a JavaScript developer, the first thing I wanted to know is, I have the scenario I wanted to activate for the longest time. So you know that Azure has a publication on dev.to, right?
Yeah.
Turns out dev.to has an API, and we always wanted to have a dashboard inside our organization where we can kind of get to see all the posts that have been made by everyone in the Azure org, all the advocates. So Daniel, is that something we could do?
Yeah, we can create all kinds of connectors. We can create them whenever you have a REST API. You can actually create a connector for that. So that's really cool.
What's a custom connector? I noticed that you said it would be a custom connector.
Yeah, a custom connector is one of the types of the connectors. We have a bunch of out-of-the-box connectors. And that's something that's really cool because
Wow.
whenever you go to the Power Platform, you have a couple of products. You have Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and Power Pages. But
Wait. Are you telling me if I build a connector once, I can use it with all these products?
you can use it with Power Automate, Power Apps, and Logic Apps. So
Aha.
it's even a part of Azure that you also can use with this. And that's really cool. And within the Power Platform, there are already more than 900 out-of-the-box connectors available. So you can see a small list of them at the bottom of this slide. So you can, for instance, see Salesforce, SQL Server, SharePoint. There are a bunch of data sources that you can use here.
Ah.
But
Mhm.
if your connector is not available, you can, of course, build a custom connector. And that's what we want, right?
Yeah. So I believe they don't have a dev.to connector in there. So what you're saying is if we have an API, we could build it ourselves, right?
Yeah,
Let's do
exactly.
this.
Yeah, yeah, and the custom connectors are built based on Open API v2. So
Ah,
that's something
okay.
that you should be aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one thing that you should know. But yeah, it's something that's really cool. So to talk a little bit more about the types of connectors, because you were already asking what is a custom connector.
Uh-huh.
Well, a custom connector is basically what you always use as a start for also the other connectors, because
Okay.
you need to build a custom connector first, and that's a connector that's available in one Power Platform environment in your company tenant. And when you have that, you can edit your connector, you can add operations, you can add responses, requests, etc. And it has to be deployed through a solution by using application lifecycle management,
That's what
or you
ALM.
can do it manually as well.
Nice, but tell me more about this certified connector, because I think now I understand what custom does, but what certified mean?
Yeah, certified is really, really interesting when there is, for instance, a company that has an API and they want to make it possible for people who use the Power Platform to automate their service. So imagine dev.to would, for instance, create their own custom connector, and they want
Mm-hmm.
to certify that and make it possible for everyone that uses the Power Platform
Uh-huh.
to use their connector.
But I don't work for dev.to. Can I still create a
No,
custom connector?
no, and that's the beauty of independent publisher connectors,
Ah,
and
yeah.
those give you the possibility to create a connector for almost every service around the world. Of course, we still have legal, etc. So it should be legal to use it. So that's one check that you need to do. But the really big advantage of using a certified connector or independent publisher connector is that you don't have to deploy it. It's automatically available because it becomes one of the 900 plus connectors that you already have.
Oh,
And that's
so if
something
I
that's really cool.
yeah, so if I understand this right, if I were to build a custom connector as a pro dev,
Hmm.
Microsoft can help manage the deployment of it for me so I can make it available to all these folks who want to use it without having to do any extra work.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And yeah, it's still safe as well because when you create a custom connector,
Mhm.
your admin, of course, wants to manage it as well. So when they see a custom connector that they don't want to see within their environment, they can still block it. So
Uh-huh.
that's something that you should be aware of.
So what are we going to do next?
Yeah, so next we are going to talk about building the connector, of course.
Woohoo. Okay.
Um, yeah, and in this case, we are going to use the Maker portal. That's what it's called in the Power Platform. And we are going to show you a custom connector, how you can use the UI to build one. So let's switch to the demo environment that I have.
And
So
so just to clarify, this would be the first step if I want to build that dev.to custom connector. My first step would be to go over here, right? To the
yeah,
awesome.
so you can go to make.powerapps.com or make.powerautomate.com.
Uh-huh.
And when you are logged in, you can see your own icon at the top right corner so that you are logged in. And then you have a navigation here, and that's where you can start building. So that's the easy part how you can get started. And it's really good to start with solutions. That's basically the most important part because when you want to create a custom connector, a solution is kind of a bucket which you can use to use the application lifecycle management.
Uh-huh.
So it's easier to move all the custom connectors plus a Power App that we're going to create later together in one bucket.
Mhm.
And that's why solutions are there. And I already created a solution, a dev.to solution. And there is a Canvas app, which we are going to show later, and the custom connector.
So
Uh,
just to ask you a
yeah,
question on this, I remember you saying that we can build connectors for logic apps, we can build connectors for automate, etc. I could actually build additional apps and add them into the same solution, and
yeah,
everyone would be able to find them, right?
yeah. So whenever you have multiple apps, for instance, and
Uh-huh.
multiple custom connectors, you can put them all in one solution and then move them from A to B, for instance, if you want to.
This is
So it's
awesome. This
really
is
easy
very
to do
like
that.
package management in our ecosystem. So great. Thank you.
Yeah, and in this case, if you look at the parts of the solution, we of course have a custom connector and the Canvas app.
Hmm.
But whenever we would certify our connector, we don't need the custom connector anymore because it's automatically on there already.
Hmm.
So that's also a really big advantage of using a certified connector or an independent publisher connector.
Got it.
But yeah, before we move into our connector, we of course need to show the API that we're going to use.
Yeah, and I remember
And
you saying Open API version 2, you said. Is that right?
yeah, that's
Awesome.
correct.
Okay.
So when we open up the API, we can see that we have a Open API specification here.
Hmm.
You can download that, of course. And I believe this is a YAML file. I
Yes.
don't know if it's version 2. You tested it.
Yeah, I
Was it
think
the
it's
version
version
2?
3. It's a YAML
Okay.
file and it's version 3, and they actually have two APIs, this version and another one, which
Hmm.
is the newer one. But yeah. So
Yeah.
how do we kind of use it if it's in version 3? Is it possible to still
Yeah.
build a connector?
Yeah. So I would normally convert that to a V2 version and then
Hmm.
import it. But to really know a little bit more about the API, I usually start from scratch and then I'll build it on top of yeah, all these parts that I can see here. So what you can
So
see here, yeah,
the fact that we have the open API specification actually helps us because you can copy paste some of the metadata for requests and all from here when you're building it from scratch.
exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, and what's also really cool here is that, of course, there are some descriptions, etc., that you can reuse within your connector because
Uh-huh.
sometimes you have to describe a certain property that you get back or a query parameter, and it's really good to look at all that documentation to move on. So yeah, what we can see here is, for instance, that if we want to get articles, we have a URL here, dev.to/API/articles. And when
Hmm.
I go to my custom connector,
Hmm.
and this is the edit screen of my connector that I already built, we can see already that parts of it are available here because you can see here a host name and a base URL, and
Nice.
those are dev.to/API.
Okay, so this general tab is where I would fill in the metadata for my application that I'm building. Like if I had an icon that I want to put all of those stuff, I would fill it in here. And the two
Yeah.
main things I should check are the host and the base URL. Got it.
Yeah, correctly. And when you go to the next tab, for instance, there's security. And
Hmm.
this is where you would enter if you have an API key or an OAuth2 connection or something else.
Yeah.
You can also do no authentication. So if it's anonymous, for instance, you can do that as well. There are a bunch of possibilities here, but this API uses an API key. So that's what we'll use here.
Yeah, this is actually cool because if people watch the session and want to go and build their own dev.to adapters or connectors, they could do it without, because dev.to does have some endpoints that don't need authentication. So they could try it without the API key and with.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then we'll move on to the meat of the connector, and
Yes.
that's the definition.
Yeah.
So that's where we define all the actions and the triggers that are part of the connector. In this case, we only have actions, and actions are basically the operations that you have.
Okay.
So it can be get articles or create an article or get my articles. There's a bunch of options in here.
Hmm.
And again, we have a general card here, and that has a bunch of options here. So what you can see is that you have a summary, and that's the name that really pops up into your low-code development.
Hmm.
So whenever you are looking for an action and you fill in get articles, this one should pop up.
Oh,
So
I
that's
see.
something
Okay.
that's really cool.
So this helps me understand this better. So actions are any kind of requests that go to the API. So we can actually create actions for any request, potentially even scoped to various
Yeah,
parameters and things. Well, nice. Okay.
correctly. Yeah, and the triggers are actually what kicks off a workflow, for instance.
Uh-huh.
So that could be something like a webhook. So when a new article gets posted somewhere. So that's possible as well.
So triggers would help us actually create automated workflows that trigger this and then potentially get this data
Yeah.
fed into. Hey, this is super cool.
Yeah, and this is only the first part because, of course, you have the general part where you can fill in summary, description, operation ID. But there's also a request part. That's, of course, the request that we do within this operation. And what's really cool here is that you can use a import from sample
Ah,
functionality,
yes.
and this will save you a lot of time because in this case you can use import from sample, and then you can just select the verb. So for instance, get, and
Hmm.
then I can go back to the documentation and I can just copy the URL here
Now
and
I
go
get it.
back.
So this is how you were able to build the dev.to connector, even though that was OpenAPI 3.0, because you could copy paste the content here and build it from scratch.
Yeah, correctly.
Nice.
Yeah, and there is, in this case, I'm using the normal URL, but there are a bunch of possibilities here because you have query parameters here in the operation, and you
Hmm.
can have page per page, a tag, etc. And if I want to use those, I need to add them manually.
Okay.
So in this case, I need to add page is 1, for instance, and per page is maybe 30. And by entering these query parameters, it will automatically see that there are query parameters needed.
Hmm.
And that's how you can use those and import them.
Okay.
But I already did that before.
Hmm.
So all the query parameters are already in there. So you can see page, per page, etc. So I use that already. But that's only for our request. So
Yeah.
then something comes back, of course.
Yeah. Hey, before you move on though,
Hmm.
I'm a pro dev, right? So I saw you had
Yeah.
a Swagger editor. Can we just take a quick sneak peek at that? I want to know what
Yeah,
that does.
sure. So the Swagger editor
Oh,
is where
yes.
you can where you can also see all the properties that are already in this connector,
Yeah.
all the responses, all the requests. I can even fold it if I want to. You can see parameters here that we had. So the page per page are already in there, and that's also possible to do that within here.
Yeah, this is such a familiar look for folks who are working with OpenAPI. And what I'm understanding here is that you can edit in the definition tab or the Swagger tab, and they kept in sync. So whichever way
Yeah,
you feel most comfortable, if you're a code first person, you can come and do it here, and it'll still work.
yeah.
Nice.
So that's how you can how you can easily do that. Um, but to finish it off, we also have the response, of course, and the
Hmm.
response is whenever it comes back from the request, of course. So you always want to do something with the content that you get back from the API. So whenever we want to get all the articles, we maybe want to loop through all the articles and get the title of an article and the author, and then maybe put that in an email or put that do something with it at least.
Uh-huh.
And that's why you want to have the response as well. So you can import from sample there as well.
Hmm.
And the best APIs usually, just like this one, they
Give you an
have like
example. Yeah.
yeah, you can just use the sample, you can expand, you can copy it, and whenever you do that, you can just go back to your import from sample part, you can paste it, and you can hit import, and then it will um, get all the the responses that you get.
Gotta love open API specs.
Yeah,
They give us everything. Yep. This is nice.
so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whenever we are done with it, we can of course move on from the definition to the next part, and that's in this case code. We are not going to talk about that today, but
Uh-huh.
there is a possibility to use custom code with custom connectors, and you can use C# code to use it within your custom connectors. So
Yeah.
that way you can transform or do stuff with your request and your responses.
I remember you showing me this, and I find this super interesting because this is almost like we have a place where we can intercept request responses, transform and enhance them the way we want before they get to and from the API to our kind of users, right? Like the places where we're
Yeah.
using them. Yep, very nice.
And the last part
Yes.
is maybe the most
Yes.
important part. So let me update it because I just changed a little bit with the import function.
You read my mind though. I was like, hey, there are so many APIs, so many parameters. How do we even know that all the stuff we kind of handcrafted works? So this is cool.
Yeah. So what you need to do here is we already have a connection here, but normally this would be gray when you start building your first connector, and then
Uh-huh.
you need to add a new connection, and that new connection that's something that the Power Platform actually needs, and Logic Apps as well, by the way, because there is an API key in this case, and
Hmm.
we need to add our API key in there to create a connection. And that's what we already did.
Okay.
So it's already available here. I already entered our API key, and from there we can use all the query parameters here. So we have page 1 per page 30.
Hmm.
And what we can do here is test operation. So we can see the response of all
Ah, nice.
the articles that I'm getting back.
Hmm.
But what you wanted
I
was
want to see all the articles
using,
from Azure.
yeah. So let's
Yes.
try that. So we're going to use the username Azure.
Yes. I
Um,
think the username is the org name, so that works. Yeah.
yeah. So in this case, I can just hit the test operation button again. And then I can see that there is a article with Power BI Everywhere series.
Did you
And if
make
I
this happen that Power BI was the first response coming back? And
no,
wait,
it
there's
is what
another Power Platforms advocate. Did you set this up?
no, it is actually my teammate David,
Yes.
but I didn't set it up. But this is really cool. So we
Yes,
can
this is
see
really
here,
cool.
yeah,
We
we
at
can
least
see here
know that
that
it's actually true. And there I see it. I see the username and the org name. Yep.
yeah. So this is really cool. And with that, we are actually at the end of this demo because we already have all the different actions in here. Let's move back to the
Yeah.
slides
So
and
just before you go, I want to like quickly look at that screen. And I really like the fact that up top we can see the entire flow. It's a 5-step process. We start from metadata, then we put our API key, we define everything. We can add translation stuff, transformation stuff if we want, then we test it. And at this point, we update the connector. It's all set to go, right? Everything is like
yeah,
in this. Okay, got it.
yeah. So that's really easy to use.
Yeah.
So let's move back and go to the presentation again.
And I think the next step, we also did this test part. So yay.
Yeah.
Yes. And I actually did want to say that what I remember you telling me is once the connector is built, we can also test it in any one of those, like through Logic Apps or through not just in that space, but we can go and test it with one of the user
Yeah,
components.
correct. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about independent publisher connectors because we already talked a bit about custom connectors. We already talked about certified connectors, but the independent publisher connectors, that's something that has been around now for almost 2 years, I believe. And
Wow.
it's really nice to have those because those give you the possibility to create a connector for something that you are not part of. So if you are not an employee of, for instance, dev.to, you can still create a connector there.
Got it.
So let's go step by step to the whole independent publisher connector. The whole way of creating one. So before you start building a connector, make sure your connector doesn't exist because we don't want people to both create a connector and then one of them gets accepted and the other one already exists then. So make sure that you know that the connector doesn't exist. You can share your connector proposals. So whenever you want to create a dev.to connector, you can already go to GitHub and create a pull request there, a draft pull request, for instance, and then you can create a proposal there, so that you kind of have a claim on the connector. And then you can build it, of course, just like I showed in the edit screen. You need to create a title. You need to write a description for your connector. You need to define all the summaries and the descriptions from all your actions, but also the query parameters and the responses. You also want to add metadata describing the connector and its end service. So we need a little bit of metadata around dev.to in that case. You need to prepare the connector artifacts. You need to submit your connector for deployment. And this will take a little bit of time because Microsoft will check if your connector is really working well, if all the different parts that are requested, if they are in there. And then they will certify it as well. That will take a couple of weeks as well. And then whenever it's certified, it will go on the deployment train, and that will take a little while before it's landed in every environment because that's the deployment stage. And then we move on from there. And
So
then
the
at the
thing
end, of
that
course,
the thing I really like about this process is it's centered in GitHub. So because all the
yeah,
publisher connectors are in GitHub, so we can actually file the issue and then we can keep tracking the conversation right on GitHub. And if someone else, like for example, now you're going to publish dev.to and I'm like, hey, I want to see something extra, I can literally come in and add to that discussion and try to make sure we're all like coalescing around one idea. That's great.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, so that's everything about connectors. Let's move on with the front end, because whenever you have a connector, you of course want to do something with it. We can create Power Apps, which are applications, of course. We can create chatbots, which is Power Virtual Agents. We can do all kinds of things. In this case, we are going to build a Canvas app, which is a Power App. we are going to use components to speed up the development, because components are really easy to use, and there's a bunch of things that you want to reuse within apps, of course, like a menu, a search bar, maybe a table, and it can help a lot with speeding up your development. And of course, we want to use our custom connector to connect to dev.to.
Yeah. So as a JavaScript developer, if you're on the JavaScript community or if you're on any pro dev, I think those are the two things I took away. We can build connectors and we can actually potentially build components or help people kind of jumpstart with template apps. Cool.
Yeah. So to create our app, we are going to use something called Creator Kit, which is available from Microsoft. And it's based on Fluent UI, which is a framework that Microsoft created. And it's also being used in all kinds of Office products. So, for instance, in Teams, they use Fluent UI. In SharePoint, they use it. So whenever you use this, it can fit in there really, really easily. And there are a bunch of things already available here, like a table, a menu, a command bar, etc. So let's move on to the Power App that we created.
Wow, I can already see the list I asked for. I can see the article. This is amazing.
Yeah, so here I am in the Power Apps Maker Studio, and this is where we have all the objects that we have here in the app. And I already added all kinds of things, like I have a pivot, which is basically the place where we navigate from one to another. We have a search box. We have a command bar, which we don't see now, but I'm going to show you that in a little bit. We also have a grid where we have a table of all kinds of articles. So let's move on and just show it, because that's the easiest.
Yes.
So this is the preview mode of Power Apps. And here we can see that we have all kinds of articles in there.
So this one is using the articles endpoint, and I can see that you can select. So when you pick the Azure or .NET, you're effectively giving that as the parameter for the username, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so let me just select it, and it will show the little dots here, because it's now doing a call to dev.to, and it also shows the Power BI Everywhere series here.
Yeah,
and dev.to, which we just saw. So if I click on this, I need to use this one. I can select, for instance, the on select here. And what I can do here is I can expand the formulas which we use in the low-code development environment. And what I can do here is whenever somebody clicked on Azure, for instance, it should do a call to dev.to, get articles, and it uses the username Azure in here.
Yeah.
So that's what it actually does.
So this is pretty cool. And I think our session is almost at an end. So would people be kind of able to follow this up with resources?
Yeah, so let's move back to the slides for that and move on to the resources.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we have a bunch of resources here. We divided it in multiple parts. So the connectors are in there with all the links to the custom connectors. You can have documentation, coding standards, which are really, really helpful. A CLI where you can download the connector if you want to and put it in source control, for instance. There's also a part about the independent publisher certification part. And of course, the GitHub repo, which is really, really important, because that's where everything starts. And of course, the Power Apps are in there as well. So you can go to the Canvas Apps documentation and the Creator Kit documentation.
Yeah. So, but we're going to end with a shout out. If you go to the next slide, we're going to give a shout out to Low Code February. So if you want to go check this out, in week 2 of Low Code February, which is going on right now, we actually wrote up an article on this. So you can go read up, and we'll put all these resources there for you as well.
Yes. So with that, we are at the end of the session. And Nitya, thanks for helping me with this session. And I love the great idea with dev.to.
Yes.
And I can't wait for other people to build their own custom connectors as well and share them.
Because yes, I think and we should publish this and get people to contribute to it. This was amazing, and I can't wait for us to do more.